While millions of grown adults are spending their entire weekend emotionally invested in whether a ball goes into a net, memorizing statistics about strangers, and genuinely considering a game result as the best or worst day of their year, there's a significant portion of the population who experiences absolutely zero emotional reaction to any of it. And according to recent neuroscience research, their reward circuitry might be fundamentally calibrated differently. Stay with me because what you're about to discover will completely change how you understand the bizarre gap between sports fanatics and people who just don't get it.
Here's what nobody tells you. Your complete inability to care about sports doesn't mean you lack passion. It doesn't mean you're antisocial. And it definitely doesn't mean there's something missing from your personality. But something genuinely different is happening in your brain's reward system compared to the roughly 63% of people who describe themselves as sports fans. The question isn't, why don't you care? The real question is, what's your brain doing instead?
Let's start with the obvious. Why are so many people absolutely consumed by sports? The answer goes back about 200,000 years. Humans survived because we formed tribes. Your tribal identity wasn't just social, it was life or death. The people wearing your colors protected you from threats, shared resources, kept you alive through winter. Your brain evolved to chemically reward tribal belonging. Fast forward to now, sports are essentially tribal warfare with rules and corporate sponsorship. When someone watches their team play, their brain releases oxytocin. That's the bonding neurochemical, the same molecule that floods your system when you hold a newborn or hug someone you love. Their brain is literally experiencing these millionaire athletes as family members, as their tribe. But here's where the addiction piece comes in. Every single play creates what neuroscientists call anticipatory dopamine. That moment before you know what happens. Will they score? Will they miss? That uncertainty triggers a dopamine spike, not when the outcome happens, when you're waiting to find out. Studies using functional MRI scans show that watching sports activates the nucleus accumbens, the same brain region that lights up during gambling, video games, and other compelling activities. The technical term is intermittent reinforcement. You don't know when the reward is coming, so your brain stays locked in, constantly anticipating the next hit. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines effective. The same reason you can't stop scrolling social media. Unpredictable rewards are neurologically irresistible. Sports fans aren't choosing to care this much. Their dopamine system is being hijacked by uncertainty repeated thousands of times per game. Their brain doesn't care that the outcome is meaningless to their actual life. It only knows tribe, anticipation, possible victory, chemical reward.
Now here's where it gets interesting. People who don't obsess over sports have what researchers call attenuated vicarious reward response. Watching other people compete doesn't trigger your dopamine system the way it does for sports fans. And this difference might literally be genetic. Research from the University of Chicago examined variations in dopamine receptor genes, specifically the DRD2 and DRD4 genes. They found that certain genetic variations predict how much someone engages with competitive spectator activities. Think about that. Your indifference to whether your city's team wins might be coded into your DNA. But there's another psychological dimension. Sports fans engage in something called burging, basking in reflected glory. When their team wins, they say, "We won." When their team loses, suddenly it's "they lost." They're psychologically merging their identity with the team during victories and distancing during defeats. People who don't care about sports show significantly less identity flexibility. Your self-concept is more stable. You don't need external victories to feel successful because your sense of self isn't dependent on things completely outside your control. Your self-esteem has internal anchors, not external ones. Psychologists describe this as having lower tribal instinct intensity. That sounds negative, but it's completely neutral. It just means your identity isn't primarily constructed around group membership. You're more individualistic in how you find meaning. A 2020 study found that people with low sports interest showed dramatically reduced us versus them cognitive patterns. They don't automatically develop negative feelings toward opposing teams or their fans. Their brain doesn't create artificial enemies based on jersey colors. Your brain is simply allocating its tribal bonding capacity somewhere else.
But wait, here's something that sounds contradictory. Sports fans actually score higher on certain empathy measurements. They practice caring intensely about other people's struggles, even strangers they'll never meet. So what's happening with people who don't care about sports? Do they lack empathy? Absolutely not. It's about empathy allocation. Think of it as an emotional budget. Sports fans spend their budget on parasocial relationships with teams and athletes. Non-sports people? They're spending that same budget somewhere else. A 2021 study found that individuals with minimal sports interest scored significantly higher in openness to experience and aesthetic sensitivity. They're getting their emotional transcendence from art, music, nature, philosophy, creative projects. Their brains are seeking the exact same thing: meaning, connection, emotional intensity, narrative, stakes. They're just finding it through direct participation rather than vicarious observation. Here's the fundamental philosophical split. Sports fans find profound meaning in narrative, the underdog story, the dynasty, the comeback. People who don't care about sports think, why would I emotionally invest in an outcome I can't influence, performed by strangers with zero impact on my actual existence? They're not wrong, but neither are sports fans. One group finds epic narrative in a championship run. The other finds it in a novel, a scientific discovery, building something with their own hands. Sports fans build one-sided emotional relationships with people who will never know they exist. Non-sports people instinctively prefer investing their energy where there's actual reciprocity, where they're participants, not observers. Neither approach is superior, they're just different strategies for being human.
So what does all of this actually mean? If you don't obsess over sports, you're not missing some fundamental human experience. You're not emotionally underdeveloped. You're not boring. You're neurologically different.
Your brain's reward circuitry, your tribal bonding mechanisms, your empathy allocation, your dopamine receptor sensitivity, they're all calibrated for a different kind of engagement. Not worse, not better, different. The next time someone asks, "Did you see the game?" and you feel that familiar internal disconnect, remember this. You're not failing to be human correctly. You're just playing a different game. And that game, the one where you're an active participant in your own life rather than a spectator of someone else's, where your emotional energy goes toward things you can actually influence, that might, just maybe, be the one with the higher stakes. Your brain isn't broken. It's just investing its resources differently. And there's actual neuroscience explaining why. You're not on the outside looking in. You're on a completely different path, and now you know exactly why. If this resonated with you, you're going to want to see why people who prefer staying home are actually operating on a completely different dopamine baseline than everyone else, and why that might explain your entire social life. Click the video on screen to discover what your brain is really doing when everyone else is out there exhausting themselves.